Well, hello everybody. This is Sherman again. I think we're at round 6. You'll notice I lost some of my winter growth. It's coming into spring. I'm coming to you again from Tempo Trend Studios, Victoria, BC, Canada. And we're continuing this discussion of practical theory for the intermediate improviser on the guitar. So this isn't beard stroking theory, not that I have a beard anymore right now, but this is theory that you apply to a practical situation when you're presented with a set group of chords. What is the thinking? What's the underlying thinking? Lately I've been previewing a lot of the currently available discussions of this sort of thing, to try to see if I'm doing anything redundant. I wouldn't want to waste my time if it's already out there. But I think the way I'm presenting it puts a new wrinkle on it anyway, so it made me feel a little better about the validity of doing this project, aside from just giving you guys something to fill out the empty quarantine hours. But what I'd like to do tonight is I'm going to start with the jam first, warm up my fingers, and then we'll talk about column, if you're following this in sequence, column 4 in our G blues. So we've done major, minor overlaps, along with the 5-chord Mixolydian mode, which gives you very good coverage, I find, for most situations in a 12-bar blues, where you have what we call a diatonic blues, which means staying within the key, no modulating or outside crazy chords. So we've done first column, second column, the overlaps of the forms, and third column, and tonight we'll go into the fourth column right after this little warm up here and get my hands warmed up. So tonight I'll just do something in the key of D, and I'm going to present some concepts that we haven't discussed yet, but they're on the horizon. So bear with me, and here goes. 2, 3. Warts and all. A few hesitations there, but I tried to present a few things. I presented tritones tonight a little bit for you. I will touch on those just briefly tonight. I also wanted to discuss targeting tones a little bit more. I touched on that with the chart, and I hope you saw the chart with the sun and the planets being the chords in my analogy, the sun being the key center. So got a lot of stuff on the go, so we just have to kind of keep it all together. First thing I want to talk about is chromaticism. You hear me doing a lot of that in there, and I'll run between. You hear that kind of thing. Let's go back to D where I was, sorry. So what's the underlying concept? Well, occasionally when you ask somebody in a guitar magazine, what's your favorite scale? Rather half tongue-in-cheek, they'll say the chromatic scale, because it has all the notes. Well, that's true. I mean, if you go across the board, anything in a row, that's chromaticism, really. You know, you're just filling in all the cracks between all the notes. It's wavy gravy. There's no definition of any sort, but it's a good technique to have. I'm going to show you a true chromatic scale. This is derived from some a classical guitarist. I stole this from a master class thing that I saw. So we'll take this from E. So we'll start with the open E. It's a great finger exercise too. So hit your open E, go 1, 2, 3, 4, right in order with your finger, index, middle, so forth. Okay, so hit the 0 first, but start thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. Shift to the 5th fret, continue with that 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. So that's 5 to 8. Then we're going to shift again, 9 to 12. So far we have. Now, instead of just going straight across the board, to keep the sequence of notes truly going 1/2 step each time, we have to notch back 1 fret. So now we've left off at the 12th fret, notch back to the 8th fret, first finger, and go to the 11th. Notch back again on the 4th string, 7 to 10. Notch back again, 6 to 9. Because of the way the guitar is tuned, we don't notch this time. We're going to go straight down to the 6 again. And I'll soften the tone there. 5th fret to 8th, shift, 9th to 12th. And look at that, you've gone from low E to high E. So let's see, I'll just call out the frets as I go. So 0, 1 to 4, 5, notch to 9, next string 8, next string 7, next string 6, next string 6, next string 5, 9. So without talking, it would be. So that's a great one, and you can do that descending the same way. But here's another way, just so you can find one more passageway and practice this kind of thing. Let's go back from 12 to 9. Okay, first string. Shift back as smoothly as you can, starting with the pinky, leading 8 to 5. Shift back again, 4 to 1. Okay, so all the way down. Now notch over to 5. And because of the way it's tuned, the 2nd to 3rd strings, you stay in the same fret location. 5 to 7, 5 to 2 again. Notch over to 6. 5th string, notch over to 7. Next string, notch over to 8. And look at that, you're right on target for 4 to 1 and 0. Okay, so here we go. So 12th fret, 8th fret, 4th fret, next string 5th fret, next string 5th fret again, next string 6th fret, next string 7, next string 8, next string 4, and 0. So that sounds like this. Okay, so that is just a good exercise, but it is a true chromatic scale, not just doing in one position. That's not a chromatic scale. That's chromaticism, but it's not a chromatic scale. So what I gave you was a true chromatic scale. Hope you enjoy it. You can brag to your friends. on a letter. You don't write anymore, but you text a letter. Chromatically yours. Okay, so that's chromaticism. Now let's show how that applies to our task at hand. Let's say you're in pentatonic minor for G. Get back to our native key here. Pentatonic major, I should say, starting with. You've got cracks between these notes. Okay, so instead of thinking them as just wasteland between notes, they are chromatic possibilities. And we've all heard this. So if you add something like that, see if I have a drum beat here. Two there. As long as you're timing, see, if you're on a strong beat, see how I come up? If I go a drag, it sounds like just a wrong note. So if you're on time, and you can go outside the realm of the scale and slide into a note from behind or from above. You'll notice how I did that on that major from the first fret. Then when you go to the 4 chord, as we know, which sounds a little more right because of that flat 3, as we call it. This is a 3 in the major, and you can hear it in the 9th or in the 7th chord. So now the minor pentatonic sounds that much better. Now we all know you got the flat 5 in there on this. We talked about that on the first chart. On the minor, I show you there's a flat 5 there and a flat 5 here. So those are entirely legal to use. Again, try to find a way to work them in so that you're not hanging out there on one of those notes. Complete the phrase and everybody will say it's genius. If you don't complete the phrase, they'll say, boy, he sure makes a lot of mistakes. So it's all in how you phrase, right? So right? So you get those kind of things, and then in the major you can do so instead of going, you can kind of tease a little bit with some of those between notes, but it's all in how you handle them, which determines whether it's a spice or whether it's just a mistake. It'll just sound like a wrong note. So the comfort here is, technically there are no wrong notes if you know how to place those. Another way of saying it, a friend of mine used to say, there's no such thing as a weed, it's just a flower that's in the wrong garden. I happen to like dandelions. I think they're great to look at, and when they die you can blow on them and make a wish. But if it's in the wrong garden, it's a pest. It's something people try to eradicate. So I think a better way to approach your soloing is to throw some chromaticism in there, and as long as you realize what has happened in real time, you can come back to that phrase and tidy up your timing a little bit, and I think you'll find you'll have an easier flow and you won't be as nervous about wrong notes, because you can land almost anywhere and there's always a good note one fret or other away from where you are. So you can attach this to all the things that are going on here, and when you hear me playing, you'll hear that chromaticism in there. You'll also hear the flat 5s in there. So, and that will connect the notes. Also, when you're going from chord to chord, when there's that momentary that moment of, shall we say, connectivity between a chord, say in the last line of the blues, so the bar 9, you've got the 5 chord, going to C7. At that moment when those chords change, if you're in the middle of something, you can if that's the next note you want, it'll be in that. You're playing an ARP or something on there. If you start timing that right, you will find that you can really make your solos have a lot more cohesive quality than if you're just a patchwork quilt of, okay, major scale, okay, minor scale. You don't want that. You want the notes between that form a bridge. And there was a wonderful book on jazz by Jerry Coker, Improvising Jazz it's called. I urge everybody to get a copy, something you could throw in your guitar case. And it's for all instruments. And he shows a chart at one point that shows a block grid where you have the 1 chord and then the 4 chord, and instead of the 1 chord and here's the scale and the 4 chord here's the scale, he shows the chord and then he shows sort of the scale going up to connect to that next chord. And that always struck me as interesting, that he's saying don't just have a strict borderline that goes new scale. You start with that, but after a while you find a way to have a connectivity, a little conduit as it were, between those points. And so that's where the target tones really help. If you can see ahead of time that there's a good note there, it's going to serve you well. So targeting tones, this leads me into this thing. When you're playing in our first column here with our major scale, let's just stick on the skinny strings for a minute. Or put a little chromaticism. Then you're on the 4 chord. And so on. When you get down to the bar 9 where you have the D7, you've got that. You'll notice that the F sharp on that first string or the 4th string, those are 2 very prominent notes, very distinctive notes, in the same way that we think of the major 3rd on the G to the minor 3rd, which forms the flat 7 on the C. Not to get too technical here, but those notes really define those moments. So let me put on a G here, and there it is. I'll just kind of stress those notes. So you want to lean on those a little bit. F sharp. So you can see that I'm just kind of playing around the corners, trying to find the best way to find those notes, and if a chromatic run will help me, so that would be in the mixolydian for the D. Instead of going, I threw in that extra chromatic note. And then we're back to the C chord, which needs this, it's crying out for it. And then the G is coming and it's crying out for something, maybe. So you can hear that kind of in slow motion, kind of do that. So let me slow this down a little bit and do exactly that. So let's make it around 65. That's pretty slow, I think. I'm going to play really slowly. Practicing, I think, will really yield good results. You can't go wrong doing things in slow motion and just trying to really make it connect and have an easy flow to it. Then as you increase the speed, the demands of time and space, you know, try to bear in on you. You're not going to panic. Your muscle memory will have certain habit patterns that I promise you will serve you very well. Okay, so that's a good way to practice. Do that in the columns we've covered so far. Now it's time to go up into column number 4 as promised. Next installment, which will be number 7, I believe, if I have my numbers correct, we'll go into the final column at the 12th fret area. Tonight we're in the 10th, 9th, 10th area position, you would say, on the guitar, where your first finger falls. So let's look at that. So you have major, you'd have form 5, starting from the 10th fret. Backwards on the form 4, which occupies the 10th. So that was more or less the 9th position. 10th position. And that'll serve you for your C7. And then later on, Mixolydian for this. So picture the D7th chord right here. 10th fret. So 10, 12, stretch to 14. Next string, same thing. Next string, 10 to 12. So I think it's the same on those 3. Then you see that middle finger note. What on the D would be the 3rd of the chord, major 3rd. Carry on, so 11, 12, 10, next string, 10, 12, 14, 13. And then next string, 10, 12, stretch to 14. Okay, you don't need all those notes, but I would practice them all and internalize where the best notes are. Now on the Mixolydian, we always like to do the ARP on that, because you don't have a lot of time. So sometimes, you know, on that bar 9 where that is featured, also bar 12, but bar 12 may have a turnaround, so you get cut off. So you've got one full bar to show me that you can lock in on that chord and make something really nice to connect bar 8 with bar 10, I guess, as it were. So we have, here's your ARP. So 10th, stretch to 14. Next string, 12, all by himself. Next string, 10 to 12. Next string, 11, all by himself. Next string, 10, 13. Next string, 10, stretch to 14. So that would sound like this. So let's go through that column, and then we'll review what we've got, the whole grid that we've got. We've got a really nice stretch out of which we can play here for now. So what we've got, and then we finish up next time with the 12th position one. We've got all the scales and the overlaps. The theory is established. And so if you can take some time and really internalize that, I don't expect you to master it right away, because it's new territory for a lot of you. Even if you have a already substantially developed style, it still takes a while to integrate that with the licks you've already got. So okay, so I'm going to do this on this and I'll do it slow-mo here. So what the heck, 65, oh lost it, there we go, 65, come on. Okay, so here I go. So I'm going to use major, form 5, minor, form 4, and the Mixolydian, or the ARP, whatever. And I'll throw in a little bit of chromatics, but I'm not going to get too jazzy, okay? So I promise. I'll try anyway. Okay, here we go. A little bit of major, minor, major, minor, major, mixolydian, minor, major, mixolydian, minor, major, minor, major, mixolydian, minor, major, okay, so you can kind of hear that locks in. I'm playing very mechanically because I'm trying to talk you through it, but if you can establish that and bear with me on that and get that, you're going to be fine. Okay, so before we complete this whole thing, and then I'll do a summary of all that. I got about 4 minutes or something left in this block. I'll just talk about a little bit about the tritones, and we will be exploring this very soon. The ones I was using in D will work, but I have to get back to G. So let's just start with this week. It's the third and the flat 7 of the chord, and then when it changes, it's a flat 7 and third. So it's always a third and flat 7. So on G, it would be this. That's the 4th fret and the 3rd fret, respectively. And then back to C. And then for D, it would be this. So here we go. Let's take this up a notch here. Okay. Kind of fast. So G. C. G. That's the one for C. D. Now for C. G. Now play a phrase. C. G. Now the D. C. G. So I hope that intrigues you enough. If you've not used those, you're going to really enjoy them, and you can palm the pick a little bit, and we'll get into pinching them as well. So you can see how that'll fill out your solos and really add a new dimension to this. So we've got that on the horizon. I'm going to be exploring those. I'm just teasing you with that a little bit. But get those 3 established. Okay, if you can roll that back and just find those. Shouldn't be too hard. Most of you guys can see the chords they come out of. There's your G chord and there's your C7. You can see them contained in there. So I hope this is working for you guys. I hope it's helping you a little bit, filling in some gaps. Some of you may have sped up to this lesson because you kind of had everything else nailed down. You kind of understood it. But let's say goodbye and stay well until the next time. Good night.